So I think the Florida Gators offense just might match up fairly well against the Utah Utes defense. We're going to talk about that here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Happy Monday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. And if you haven't yet signed up for Florida Victorious, you should. You should also know the rule. If you haven't signed up for Florida Victorious, you don't get to complain about recruiting here. That's what we talk about now. If you do want to save 20% off your first month with Florida Victorious, sign up using promo code LOCKED, that's LOCKED, to save 20% off your first month with Florida Victorious. Now, we're talking about this Florida versus Utah game because it's next week at this point. Like, we're quickly approaching the start of the season, which means welcome to the show, Utah fans, because I know you're going to be here. So appreciate you showing up. But last week I talked about, Florida, I think, has a distinct advantage defensively over the Utah Utes offense. Today, I want to talk about where the Florida Gators offense matches up well against the Utah Utes defense. Not that it's better in every single way, but just where it matches up well. I'm starting with the run game because I do think that Florida matches up well. The important part here, I understand Florida has injuries and position battles going on the offensive line. For me, I don't care who the starting offensive line is for the Gators in the run game because I know that no matter who the starting five is, that they're all going to be good run blockers. Like, that's the thing that we know Florida has just throughout this offensive line: sound run blocking. Passing game is a completely different story. I'm not going to pretend that it's like, well, no matter who's there, they can pass block. I'm not going to pretend that one. I will say that, yeah, I think as far as run blocking goes, I don't care who the starting five is. This roster has, 8 maulers in contention for a starting spot right now. I'm cool with that. So, yeah, I understand Utah's defensive line. They're good. Their defensive front 7 or 6, good. I'm taking Florida's offensive line in that battle. I just will. Especially after last year, like, Utah fans keep going in the comments like, our defensive line is so good. Y'all said the same thing last year, and they weren't. Scary sight, I know. But with this matchup, I'm fully expecting the Utah Utes to match personnel. By that, I mean, if Florida goes 11 personnel, so 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, I expect Utah to have 3 corners on the field. If Florida goes 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, I expect 4 Utes on the line or on the front, because 1 could be standing up or 2 could be standing up, whatever, and 3 off-ball linebackers. If Florida has 2 receivers on the field, I'm expecting 2 corners on the field from Utah, because that's kind of how you should approach this game until Florida makes you defend it a different way. Because Florida's run game is going to be pretty solid. That's just a fact. I don't care if you're like, oh, well, Utah could stop them. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Even if Utah does stop them, it's still a good running game. It's just like, it's still a good run game schematically and personnel wise. Utah just has a good defense. Okay, congrats. This Florida team can run the football. What you don't know is if they can beat you throwing the football. So every team, until Florida comes out and throws the ball successfully, and that's why they win a game, every team is probably going to match personnel with Florida. If you have 3 receivers, we're going to have 3 corners. If you have 2 receivers, we're going to have 2 corners. If you have 1 receiver, we're going to have a corner. That should be the approach that I think every team is going to take, and I think Utah is going to do that as well, especially when Utah is a team that historically they tend to want to be in their base. They're a very physical front. They've got linebackers that can fly to the ball here and there. They've got safeties that are willing to come up and make some plays. They're going to take that approach, I think. However, I think in this run game, when you match personnel, we'll talk about a little bit later why Florida could kind of take advantage of that. I think that that's what Utah is going to do, but I think Florida's run game is still going to find success. I do want to single out, I guess a double out, 2 Utah defenders that I'm interested to see how they play in this game. Cole Bishop and Kareen Reed. I think it's pronounced Kareen. I apologize if it's not. But Cole Bishop and Kareen Reed, leading returning tacklers for this defense, according to Pro Football Focus. And they've both had their fair share of struggles with missed tackles. Even last season against the Gators, they combined for 6 missed tackles against Florida, okay? Obviously, that doesn't mean that they're going to have the same struggles this year. That doesn't mean they're going to combine for 6 missed tackles again this year. Because, hear me out, wild concept here. Players can improve. So Cole Bishop, Kareem Reed, you can be improved. But welcome to Locked On Gators, where we say, prove it, and then I'll believe you. So Cole Bishop, Kareem Reed, they could miss tackles. You've got a few shifting pieces in that front that I'm interested to see how Florida matches up and how they defend Florida's run game. But I do think Florida has the advantage on the ground here. And I know, you're going to come out with the stats of Utah's run defense did this last year. Florida's rushing offense did this. I don't care. Okay? You can take any stats you want from last year. Throw them out your freaking window because I don't care at all. Okay? Even on Twitter, when I get the screenshots of Utah's offense last year and Florida's defense and what they looked like, I don't care. Especially Utah's offense, you don't have Cam Rising. Utah fans, you like to continue making the argument of Florida has a lot of roster turnover, but then you want to use the stats from last year. Do you know how much of a moron you have to be to use that? You go, oh yeah, Florida's got a ton of roster turnover, but here are the stats from last year. Florida's replacing more than half of their starting defense. But here's the stats of the starting defense from last year. You know how stupid that is that you're using stats from different players to talk about the current team? You're an idiot if that's your logic. Look at the individuals. Look at how they fit in a scheme and then have an opinion. Because if you come here and you don't want to use that logic with me, I'm going to put you in a metaphorical body bag in this discussion. So you can go in the comments and you can bring up any points you want about Florida's defense last year. But at the same time, I feel like the argument is, look at what their defense did last year and how bad they were. But then you also want to go, they've got so much turnover and a new defensive coordinator. We told you this last year, and I told you this after the game. When we speak, shut your mouth and open your ears. Because you are wrong, Utah fans, okay? We told you this last year. Yeah, a lot of roster turnover. The team's better. Yeah, new defensive coordinator. They're better, okay? We told you that last year, going from the 2021 Gators defense and Todd Grantham to the 2022 Gators defense and Patrick Toney. We're telling you that this year, going from the 2022 defense to 2023 and going from Patrick Toney to Austin Armstrong. I think the defensive coordinator is better this year, marginally, than Patrick Toney. I think he's way more aggressive. I know he's way more aggressive. And as far as roster turnover, yeah, there's a lot of roster turnover. This team got better again. I think the jump from 2021 to 2022 is way bigger in terms of talent from 2022 to 2023. So I think that the defense got better, but not as drastically better as they did from 2 years ago to last year. But we're telling you what it is. I get it. Utah fans, you don't have a ton of roster turnover. Congratulations. You didn't have a ton of roster turnover before last year either, and you still lost. So keep using those same arguments you used last year when your team lost. We're up here. We're up on the way here. Okay? So keep that in mind. There are other things that I think Florida does or Florida can use to their advantage against this Utah Utes defense. Before I talk about that, I am going to talk to you about LinkedIn jobs because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn jobs. LinkedIn jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And that cannot be overstated enough. With simple tools like screening questions, it makes it easier for you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and potentially hire. There is a reason that small businesses rate LinkedIn jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Because they're the best. Crazy how that works. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Please do be sure to like, subscribe, comment, review, do whatever it is you want to do. If you want to join the Locked On Gators Discord, the link is in the description below. We have some fun in there from time to time. But I did want to talk about Florida. I think misdirection or the art of misdirection is something that Florida is going to use to their advantage this year. I said in just the last segment, I said, I know that this offensive line has maulers in the run game. I'm not too sure what pass protection is going to look like. And I'll tell you, the reason of that is, yes, Micah Mazuka, statistically, awesome. Austin Barber, pretty good. But you're looking at an offensive line that Kingsley Aguakin, the starting center, is dealing with an injury. He's the only returning full-time starter from last year. He's also playing center, which is a very important position here for the Florida Gators and for every football team. You look at all the players that are potentially starting here, and it's like, okay, well, how are you as an individual pass protecting? Because you need to be solid individually, but also as a unit, how are you going to perform when you've had such limited reps together? Run blocking is different. I get it, especially with the wide zone style that Florida is going to run. I get it. You have to be a unit there. Pass protection, you really need to be a unit in pass protection. I've said before, I'm a New York Giants fan. And every time that they've won the Super Bowl in my lifetime, so both times beating the Patriots, they've had not great offensive line players, but fantastic offensive line units because they've had that chemistry. They could work together in pass protection. I'm not sure that this Florida Gators offensive line has that same, uh, we'll say that same benefit there. So I'm not sure what it's going to look like. But everybody and their mother knows Billy Napier, Rob Sale, this Florida Gators team are going to run the football 58 to 60% of the time. If you think that's not true, you're wrong. Especially when you look at neutral situations, they're going to try to do that. Okay. Yeah, if they get behind early and they have to throw their way back, it's going to be different. But that's not the case that we're going to assume is going to happen. With play action, everyone knows you want to run the football. Your rushing attack is pretty damn good. So when you run play action, you can force the defense to react to the run first and buy yourself a little bit extra time. It could be under center running that play action and boot. You can just say pistol, shotgun, whatever it is, run that play action and stay in that pocket. Probably keep the running back in to help you pass protect there, or maybe dump out at the end there. Yeah, you're going to have to buy yourself some extra time here. So running that play action will give you that benefit. And look, I'm not going to lie. Graham Mertz isn't the most mobile player on the planet. He's certainly not Anthony Richardson. But if you run boot right, shout out Rogue, if you run that boot and the defense doesn't respect it, and there's space for him to run, he can pick up a few yards. Not many, but could be enough space to get him 5, 6, maybe a first down. And, if you can get that from Graham Mertz, you take that. And that's all because of that run game setting up that play action. You look at other ways that you might see Florida, or that you will see Florida try to kind of misdirect things with this Utah Utes defense. You run pre-snap motion, jet motion, return arrow, whatever the heck you want to do. And the play fake on top of that. And this Utah defense might screw up a little bit. Maybe they're too aggressive against the team that beat them last year when they shouldn't have. Who gives a crap about who should have won the game? I don't know about you. I don't care about who should have won the game. I care about who did win the game. Which last year, did Florida? Who won Florida versus Utah? Right. I don't care who should have won that game. Okay. I was there. In fact, Amari Burney picked off Cam Rising in the end zone right in front of me. It was pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. It was fun. It was a fun time to see it. It was fantastic. Loved seeing Utah lose that way. Or love seeing Florida win that way. Let's say that. Love seeing Florida beat Utah that way. But you can run those pre-snap motion, and you can fake the handoff to the jet guy. You can have that motion and then fake the handoff to the running back. You can do whatever you want. But maybe this Utah team is going to be really aggressive. Maybe the new starters on Utah are going to bite on those play fakes. Some of the less experienced guys, I'll say, not more inexperienced, but some of the less experienced guys, maybe they bite on those play fakes. Hell, Florida, we just saw a bunch of fifth-year seniors bite on play fakes last year or so. Maybe Utah does that with some of their less experienced players. Who knows? But we'll find out, because I promise you, you're going to see that jet motion. You're going to see fakes. You're going to see just the play action, play fakes. You're going to see all that. We'll see how it works out for both sides, but we're going to get the answer to this specific question here. Then we look at what else can Florida bring to the table that is potentially going to be a bit of an issue for Utah. Earlier in the show, I talked about personnel, where Florida could go 12 personnel, so 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and Utah's probably going to bring out 2 wide receivers. Florida could go 11 personnel, which is 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, and you're probably going to see Utah bring out 3 corners. I just said receivers, corners. And you're probably going to see Utah bring out 3 corners to match Florida's 3 receivers. Okay? You could do that because, again, I think that Utah and every defense is going to match personnel against the Florida Gators. Again, because that's the right thing to do, I think. You can't really sell me on the argument of they shouldn't do that, because, again, until Florida proves it, do that. But Florida has a unique situation where they have a wide receiver, tight end hybrid player named Arlis Boardingham, who a lot of us love. He is a very talented player that we'll finally get to see with a large role this year as he's healthy, because last year he was dealing with an injury for most of the season, including the Utah game. Now we'll see him. And I don't think that Utah has a defender that can stick with him. Like, granted, I mean that I don't think that Utah has a single defender, like one guy who you can just go, okay, if he's on the field, man to man, shut him down. I don't think that's going to be a thing that Utah has. I think that's the thing that very few teams have. If Florida was going against Arlis Boardingham, I'd say I'm not sold that Florida has a defender who can match up with him. This isn't a knock on Utah. It's about the unique skill set that Arlis Boardingham has. I think very few defenses have a single player who you can go, all right, if he's out there, then he's your responsibility. If the Utah Utes want to match personnel, especially, then Arlis Boardingham's presence makes that a tough decision. Because let's say you go 1 running back, one tight end, two wide receivers, and Arlis Boardingham. Do you consider that 11 personnel, 12 personnel? If you put a cornerback on him, Florida probably just bumps him inside in the box and you run the ball. And then you go no huddle. And again, I want to make this clear also. No huddle doesn't mean that you quickly go up to the line of scrimmage and snap the ball right away. We saw Florida do it plenty last year where you go no huddle so that the defense can't make adjustments, but then you wait until there's 7 seconds left and then you snap it. It's not hurry up, it's just no huddle. So, Florida, maybe you go no huddle and you just keep running the football because you've got more size than Utah has. Okay? Again, in this specific instance of if Utah puts a corner on Arlis Boardingham and he's the power slot, we'll say, bring him into the line, into the formation, and then run the football there. Okay? Let's say Utah goes, all right, we're going to put a linebacker on him. Line him up in the slot and just let him feast there. Just quick dink and dunk and just let him run after catching it. Put him out wide. Linebacker follows him out wide. Guess who's going vertical? Corner sticks him outside, and then you have a linebacker on a slot receiver. Guess who's working underneath in the slot? Put a safety on him. I don't think that Utah has a safety that can cover him properly. I think that that's the same as putting, basically the same as putting a linebacker on him in this sense of I don't think you can cover him like that. I don't think you have the personnel that can line up with him. Like Florida's best matchup defender for someone like Arlis Boardingham is probably Shamar James. Not confident he can do it. And then it's probably just physically wise, Jordan Castell, who's a true freshman. So I like, again, this isn't a knock on Utah at all. It's just I think Arlis Boardingham is that matchup nightmare type. He's not Kyle Pitts, Utah fans. And by that I mean he's not the same style player as Kyle Pitts. Again, this is for the Utah fans, or if you're a Florida Gators fan, you haven't heard this part from me yet. Arlis Boardingham is not Kyle Pitts. He is a wide receiver tight end hybrid. He's not Kyle Pitts. He's more of the Travis Kelce type. He's big. He's not insanely athletic. He's insanely athletic for his size, for his position. He's 6'3", 245, and he can outrun a lot of people. Okay? So I think that's where we're talking about where things can get tough. He also played a lot of receiver throughout his career so far, and he's playing more tight end now. So I think that that's where it becomes a real mismatch nightmare, especially for a team who wants to match personnel. Because I think, how do you defend him? And then you go, this is how they're defending him, and then Florida attacks that way. So I think that's what makes Arlis the X factor for this one. I think there's multiple games where we say Arlis Boardingham's the X factor, but against Utah specifically, again, they want to match personnel, or they're probably going to want to match personnel. That puts them in a tough spot with Arlis Boardingham. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back later today because don't forget, for the next, pretty much until the Utah game, we got 2-a-days. It's football season, baby. That's what we do. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I'll see you all tomorrow.